Welcome to our podcast. Today we will delve into account-based marketing. We will unpack the definition of ABM, its outcomes for clients, and the strategies and why it's so effective. So let's kick off with the definition. I'm taking ITMA's definition, which is about treating individual accounts as markets in their own right, okay? Some characteristics of account-based marketing is that it's a structured process for developing and implementing highly customized marketing programs. Another characteristic is that it's a long-term approach because it's rooted in deep analysis and issues that your clients are facing, and demands a commitment of resources, right? Another thing is the ethos of account-based marketing is collaboration. It's about building cross-functional teams that work together towards a common goal. And marketing has a very unique function, which is the one that unifies all the organization. The benefits for the client is that they feel understood. They engage in conversations that are tailored to them. They gain broader awareness about what you are offering them, and the overall experience is higher customer satisfaction. And the benefits for sales and marketing is that they transition from being just a vendor to a partner, and they experience richer conversations about needs that uncover new opportunities, accelerate sales cycles, etc. Okay, but the world is not so perfect, you know. So today we will discuss the nuances of ABM. Hi, Bertie, welcome. You missed a bit introduction. I'm giving the introduction about account-based marketing and what we will discuss today. Okay, today we will talk about the prerequisites for ABM. Okay, we will talk about account selection and segmentation, the importance of content, and finally how we leverage technology for ABM. So let's start with a quick introduction. Navneet, forgive me if I say wrong your name.
You said it perfectly. Hello, guys. I am Navneet Rathod. You can call me Nav, and I am a digital marketing specialist at SAS, and we are a cloud-native AI and analytics platform serving solutions and services across multiple verticals.
Thank you. Tiago?
Hi, so I'm Tiago. I work for IQPC under the guise of Defense IQ. We are a defense conference company, and I am the content manager at Defense IQ, also currently working for our American branch, IDGA.
Thank you. Ben?
Hello, Ben Bullpitt. I'm the Senior Director globally for Algolia, and I'm responsible for all account-based marketing teams, field and partner marketing teams at Algolia. And for those of you who don't know, Algolia is a search and discovery company in the e-commerce platform space.
Thank you, Ben. Judith?
Hi, I'm Judith Sabo. I'm the Global Head of Demand Generation at Endava. Endava is an IT services and consultancy company serving B2B enterprise customers across technically all verticals that we can sell into. I'm responsible for ABM, field marketing, partner marketing, campaigns, and digital marketing and marketing operations at Endava.
Thank you, Judith. Adrian? You are on mute.
Yeah, so I'm a VP of Customer Success at Exact Growth and Challenge. But previous to this, I worked for a global market research company called GfK, and one of my last role there was actually managing their top 40 strategic accounts. They all had individual account directors, and one of the things that we managed through that process was how to deliver ABM to those individual accounts.
Brilliant. Bertie, are you still with us? No. Okay, we will give him the opportunity to introduce himself in a couple of minutes. I hope he come back. Well, and finally, I'm Joaquin Dominguez. I'm head of marketing at SAGT, and we are hosting this podcast. So let's kick off. As I told you, we will start the discussion with the prerequisites for account-based marketing. Before we deep into ABM, it's essential to understand its foundational elements. So ABM is rooted in a customer-centric approach. So ensuring also that marketing and sales are not just aligned, but working in tandem. So I will give an open question. So why is it so important to have a customer-led strategy in ABM?
Okay, I'll go first then, if no one's going to put their hand up.
Please.
I think the foundations of ABM has to be rooted in, does the company recognize and understand that ABM is a different approach? I think a lot of sales organizations talk about ABM and they want ABM, but they don't fully appreciate and understand the complexities and what is required from them from an investment of resource and time and energy to support that program. It is truly cross-functional. So I think one of the prerequisites before you even get onto the conversation of accounts, we get on the conversations of technology, is how do you get buy-in from across your organization to understand that ABM is a different approach. It may not necessarily give you the short-term rewards that you need, but it has a long-term gain. And what I found is that when you get into that conversation, it's very quickly for the sales teams to decide, okay, no, that's not what I wanted. I'm really looking for short-term leads. And you go, okay, so you're not really after ABM. Or you get into the conversation that says, yes, this is a strategic investment. We recognize that it's probably going to be a 12 to 18-month program before we see any form of meaningful results, potentially, depending on your sales cycle. Once you get that buy-in from across your sales organization and your sales leaders, that then allows you to move to the next phase, which is how you define your accounts and your strategy.
Anyone else has?
I'm happy to reflect on what Ben mentioned. I totally agree that account-based marketing is a very different approach, and that has to be recognized. And the success lies in this cross-collaboration between sales and marketing and pre-sales or delivery. It's really that strong alignment there that will make an marketing ABM campaign successful, and find those advocates across the company. And sometimes finding and starting small, I found was rather helpful. Finding those first advocates, and then showing success together with sales, and then broadening it up a little bit wider. I do also, getting back to your question on whether that's for customers or not. Obviously, ABM is a really great way to increase share of wallet with existing customers. I also found, though, that it's quite a good approach to use for new logo acquisition if you are really targeted in your approach, in maybe a one-to-few cluster approach, to go after a select number of accounts and really, grow your business with new prospects as well. Before they are a customer. I don't know what others think about that approach, but I do like to use this account-based everything approach when I approach demand generation in general.
Perfect.
It's just obviously the different channels and tactics we would use when it comes to new logo acquisition with an ABM approach, or account growth within existing clients.
And what is the strategic role of marketing? That's the other part of the question. Ben, you highlighted the role of marketing in ABM, right? Can you elaborate on how this has changed the dynamics between sales and marketing at Algolia?
I think sales, my background for the audience and for my fellow panelists is I was 30 years a salesman. So I ran and I was part of a very large key account team. I run some very large accounts and had a very large sales teams. So I moved into marketing a number of years ago, and I suddenly, I'm sure people who have been marketers for their life, I suddenly realized when you woke up and you thought, hey, this is the complexities and the nuances of marketing is incredibly difficult. And as a salesperson, I didn't understand. And I wish I'd now spent time and taken the time to put some more investment in it, but I've learned very quickly. One of the things that's happened, I think, and COVID's been a catalyst for this, but this has been happening in the last 10, 15 years, is the buyer and the buyer's journey is very much shifted away from the salesperson. You can read whether it's Gartner, McKinsey, whichever report, Forrester, but over 70% of the buying journey is done without even engaging with the sales teams and or your company. And all of us have seen that shift from our content being ungated because we want to make it available. And so we're now looking at intent and we're looking at account-based activities. So the shift for marketing has moved away from not just demand generation, but actually I see it's demand generation, it's contact acquisition, and it's opportunity progression. And one of the activities that we've started to look at quite successfully is how marketing is staying much longer in the sales cycle. So historically, marketing's withdrawn from that process once the opportunity is created. Salespeople tend to say, we don't want them getting emails, we don't want them bombarded with events, and we say that's respectful, and we've moved away from that, or we had. Actually, now I think is the time that you turn that up, and I think the dynamics of marketing has changed, and its participation in the sales cycle could actually be right up till the closing stage, where but your message and what you're communicating to those organizations is very different to what you would be communicating if you're looking to do some form of acquisition or lead acquisition. For an ABM program, what's really important is that messaging, and that is nuanced to reflect the needs of that company and that organization, and you're working with the sales teams on your ads or your emails to make sure that you're not bombarding them with unnecessary material, but you're constantly feeding them that the validation of their selection of your organization is right, and we understand your organization, we understand you as a company, we recognize some of the challenges, and we have solutions to fit that. And actually that we're starting to see that resonate with customers through that buying journey. And we've seen, for example, in our account opportunity progression program that we run under the ABM team, something like 80% of the accounts engage far more with our content because they're in the process. But it's not about, can you have a demo? Can you have, here's another white paper showing how great Algolia is. It's about, here's an example of an industry that you should be looking at who's using Algolia. Here's some best practices. Here's an example of where we work with our partners that you use. So that's the sort of thing that we're starting to see. And that requirement for marketing to stay longer is quite challenging for some people because it does drive your customer acquisition cost up. But I do think it's going to be an example, and I think it's going to be something that will be maintained for a lot longer.
And how long are your sales cycles, to give an example of the commitment that you need to have in the end?
So Algolia sales cycles average around about 90 days, depending on the size of the opportunity. I've worked with organizations whose sales cycles are as much as 300 days. I think the sales cycle isn't necessarily what's relevant. I think it's the content and the material and the ability to adapt. We talked about it, that marketing is going to be across the ABM, and I think Judith mentioned it. It transcends the whole of the sales and organizational function. SEs, sales, SDRs, marketing, customer success. It actually transcends it, and you need people in that who are multidisciplined and able to network across those very different disciplines and departments.
100% agree. Okay, let's move into the second topic, which is account selection and segmentation, because at the heart of ABM lies the art of selecting and segmenting accounts. It's not just targeting an account, but prioritizing those with the highest potential and tailoring strategies to resonate with them. So let's delve into the nuances of collaborative account selection, the importance of segmentation. Perhaps Judith, you stressed the significance of learning the unique characteristics of each company in account-based marketing, right?
Yes, indeed.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah, and what I noticed whilst running ABM campaigns, either at my current company or in a previous life, is that sales typically have a very clear idea of what accounts they would like to go after and what solutions, technologies, products they would like to sell to those accounts. And that's certainly something that we need to be respectful of. But I also like to look into market intelligence, and then actually evaluating which accounts are looking for the technologies and solutions that the company is selling, and then notwithstanding that, looking at the win-loss analysis of, maybe sales have an idea of what they would like to sell, but have the company been actually successful in winning those deals, or we just have a romantic idea of what the customers might want to buy from us. It also relates, in my opinion, into this idea that marketing is not linear. We need to be agile and dynamic in our approaches. So I like to obviously appreciate sales target accounts they want to go after, but since we now have access to so many intelligent tools, either in-house or third-party tools on account intent, I think that's the area where ABM becomes really interesting, and maybe spreading a wider net in our targeting, but then really looking at the signals that the accounts are showing and then feeding that intelligence back to sales to reevaluate the accounts we should be targeting. And I think that's an area where it suddenly opens up the eyes of many departments within an organization when you realize that actually the accounts might tell a different story of what they are looking at buying from us, and we need to then be responsive to that, and that might actually shift the attention from a use case or a solution we wanted to position in the first place.
Please feel free to
just adding to Judith's point, right? So ABM, you can run it at different levels, but to run it at the highest level where you have what we call the 1:1 ABM, you need to have a really, really close alignment with sales, because ultimately how you decide which accounts you want to target with this will be based on numbers like what is the current recurring revenue, what is the new revenue streams we can generate from the account, or how is the strategic fit, and what exactly is the growth potential. So I think that all comes into play when you want to run ABM programs at a very high level. So we have a very specific set of accounts, at least at our company, who we run these 1:1 ABM. So I think, it all comes down to, what exactly is the growth potential with that specific account, and what exactly is the revenue streams we can generate in the future. So you need to have a really close alignment with sales when you're planning to run this ABM program at a really high level.
Yeah, I love Judith's romantic idea of sales, because I think, having been in sales, you do have this romantic view of, look, these are my 10 accounts, and the amount of data that marketing now has available to it, we are obliged and we should be giving as much of that information to those sales teams to make not romantic ideas, but actually realistic ideas. The other thing that when you discuss ABM and having run one account for like 5 years, I really understood that account along with my account team. But we lived and breathed just one account. Most organizations, when you talk about ABM, you have an enterprise team, but they might be looking after 10, 15, 20, maybe even 100 accounts. So one of the things that we found very quickly is that when you start to interrogate the sales team about what they really know, who they really know, and their interaction with the accounts, you realize it becomes just a bit of a veneer. I don't know who's on, someone got on mute. So one of the things that we've started to do is once we've agreed with sales and we've got off this, I love that comment, Judith, that romantic conversation with sales. And we said, right, this is the reality of the accounts. We've engaged the services of third-party companies like Pipeline IQ, where we've paid for them to then produce for us a very detailed overview of the account, not based upon Algolia's. It's based upon what that company is challenged, what they're currently doing, what's their technology infrastructure, what some of the key decision makers, where they are in current company performance. And they give us, and they give the sales guys some intelligence and insight very quickly for us to then build a very highly customized message. And actually the response from our sales teams from both Algolia and my previous organization has been phenomenal, because suddenly they've got really deep intelligence on an account. And when they have that conversation, they're having the conversation that the customer wants to have based upon the customer's priorities, rather than us trying to make some assumptions or make some, do our own research. What we found is these reports have helped A, accelerate the conversation with the customers, and B, it helps tailor our message. And I was always taught something about ABM with, there's really fundamentally 2 rules about account-based marketing. The first rule is it's not about you. And the second, the rule is it's all about you. And I think that's actually really true. You know, your ABM strategy is about the customer. Everything should be customer centric, relevant, and referenced in their frame and their terms and their challenges. It's all about you and how you show up. And if you are just chasing a deal, just chasing an opportunity, you'll get smelt out. You'll get caught out very quickly, and they'll smell that. It's about, you know, how you as a company and you as a ABM team turn up and engage with that account. And I think that's really, really important. You know, that rule, it's not about you and it's all about you. I've always sort of lived and breathed that, which is, it's critical that you understand them and it's how you show up and behave.
I totally agree. And maybe just one point to reflect on, how we can divert the attention into new areas of the business. I think it's particularly true when we are selling to enterprise-sized customers, you know, massive buying centers. And maybe the company has a good established relationship with one buying center, but then obviously those relationships, you know, kind of dry out after a while, and then with this need to increase revenue with an existing client, then the onus is on marketing to open up those new doors in different buying centers. But then oftentimes, actually, there's, again, too much to sell to too many different buying centers. So that's when marketing can help sales share those intelligence about the signals that the account are showing, and then help the teams, BD or sales, focus their attention on, you know, a particular use case or particular solution, when there's maybe 5 or 6 areas of the business we could be selling to. And obviously that would be just too much for any department to focus on.
Whereas, I just wanted to add something, whether I'd be interested to get the guys' view on this one. And again, quite strongly opinionated on this one is, I challenge our BDR organization whether they're actually capable of engaging with a strategic enterprise account. Because most of our BDRs, they're young, they're aspirational, they're willing to get into sales. But when you're selling to large enterprises, you're typically dealing with very experienced, very typically longevity within their roles and their understanding of their businesses. So one of the conversations that we've been having in Algolia around our ABM is that our AEs, and those are the guys that have to be prepared to get engaged a lot earlier than they have typically been expected or used to. Because if you do manage and you engage with the CTO or the CIO or the CISO of an organization, if you don't have the competencies, the capabilities, and the topics of conversation and are able to respond to them within a business sense, and you just come across as someone who's just trying to follow a script, again, your credibility, go back to my rule, it's all about you, will just fundamentally, you as a company, your credibility goes. So one of the topics for ABM, when I said at the start, is, do you realize, Mr. Sales Team, that you're going to be having to pick up the phone and you're going to have to be dealing with some of these leads at a very earlier stage? And that's been a very interesting cultural shift for some of our guys who've gone, oh, I thought the SDR could do that. And my argument again, okay, you want me to give this lead that's worth $1 million to a 22-year-old college graduate? Interesting. How far do you think they're going to get with this conversation? So that's the other thing that we've been looking at. And we've looked at third-party agencies who use a lot more experienced salespeople to help us with that as well. It's been a really interesting exercise, because when you challenge the XDR community and get them into a conversation around, could you really have a conversation with CISO? They're pretty much like, no, I couldn't. And you go, okay, but that's the target audience that we're going after.
How these third-party agencies help you with that? It's because they are really experts in the matter?
Yeah, no, the organization we're currently trialing with is a German organization for a number of reasons. One is we need to go after the German marketplace, and that German marketplace is very much local language. If you don't go into Germany with a German-speaking proposition, then typically you don't get engaged. But the average age of their caller is around 45. So you're dealing with someone who's far more experienced, and they come across that when you talk to them. So the topic of conversation can shift. It doesn't have to be following this script. That's the other thing, you tend to give the BDRs a script. Well, actually, we all know, as we're finding in this conversation, a dialogue shifts and ebbs and flows. You want someone who can have that conversation when someone says, well, actually, Ben, I don't want to talk about e-commerce. I'm currently looking at my data governance platform, or I'm looking at my finance or purchasing platform. Okay, so you're looking at Shopify, what you're doing. To be able to have that conversation allows you to build up some credibility.
Yeah, totally agree. Navneet, I wanted to ask you, and I think it's very related with this topic, because you've seen ABM budget increasing or double in your organization, and one of the things that you have done is the knowledge hub.
So on back of what I said about how we run these one-to-one ABM campaigns. So we have these 23 corporate focus accounts, which spans across different industries like banking, life sciences, government, insurance. So for these 23 accounts, what we have done is we have created a web page which is fully personalized for them. So what these account specific pages entails is dedicated content for the account, like ebooks, white papers, everything is tailored for them. And they also have links to customer enablement portals, and they have an array of different training resources in that. So this is kind of like this is what we call the knowledge hub. So this is kind of like our primary asset in play for these accounts. And these pages also have a section where they have a chance to meet their dedicated account teams, and where there are events which are like networking sessions which are like tailored for them. So this is what in a nutshell the knowledge hub encompasses of everything. And these web pages are not they can't be navigated from our main SaaS website. So, and these are not indexed on the search engine. So we run like targeted marketing campaigns to get the users to get to these pages. So these are very account specific, and all the marketing campaigns we run are very account specific. So this is in a nutshell like what we do, and the knowledge hub is like our primary asset in play for these accounts.
And the rest of the panel, have you experienced something like we discussed at the beginning the importance of content, right, to connect businesses. Ben, you were saying the importance of having the right expertise, because it's also the access to knowledge, right, that you can discuss with someone of the same seniority, is because you want to be putting in front of them the right content. So the rest of the panel, have you experienced something like this, like the knowledge hub that Navneet was mentioning?
So Kim, I'll just comment on that, because when it's done really well, the ultimate endpoint is it ends up inside the client. So we were building knowledge hubs in effect, which were again targeted to a single global account. GFK offers like 20 plus different solutions and products and services. So there's a huge amount of detail there. And the whole point was just as been described, you build it from the customer's perspective. So what are the things that the challenges they may face, and a real understanding of working with the account team to put the right knowledge hub together. And then the customer gets the ability to self-select. And we got to a point with one customer where they said, actually, that is genuinely useful to our business. So they actually put it inside. It was on their system, so that anybody who had a research requirement could go to the hub, understand what services and products were available. The organization knew it was with a trusted vendor, and therefore they also had access. And coming back to a point that Ben made, having access to the strategic account manager is great, but the strategic account manager isn't necessarily a product expert in all areas, right? Their most important job is managing the relationships within the account and coordinating the resources on the account. So when you can have a knowledge hub, which helps you identify where the customer's engaging, what they're interested in, you can also find the right product people to support that conversation. So you get that expert input really early on. So that's the best example where I've seen where the customer went, that is so useful, please put it inside our organization.
Yeah, well,
content's an interesting topic, and I know it's something you're going to cover off, but I think we all have, depending on an ABM, you're going to have different assets and content based upon where the customer is in that buying journey. Whether you're, and again, Judith mentioned it at the start, whether you're also going after ABM from a customer expansion and a customer retention perspective, or whether your ABM strategy is around new business. But as customers engage in their buying journey, Tech Target, who I've done a lot of work with, they average that it's between 12, 14 different pieces of assets and are consumed by a customer on the early start of their buying journey. That's white papers, ebooks. But as they get into the buying journey, what we've started to look at is how do we segment our content to be where people are in that process. So one of the interesting assets that we've seen is when you start to look at material that helps people get value or best practices or guides to deploy, and you make that available at a later stage in the buying journey. We've seen some really good responses from our large accounts, because actually that's relevant and that material is appropriate for them at that stage in the buying journey. There's an interesting book, if the audience want to read, called The Jolt Effect. And actually the Jolt Effect, it was written by the guys who did the Challenger sale. And they argue that most deals actually sometimes fall out, even though the customer's made a decision to buy your product, you still lose it. And at that point, the human nature is have I made the right decision? I've made a decision to buy Endava. Is that the right thing? Or actually, what then salespeople do is get into the whole, well, here's a FUD and discounting. Actually, what that customer wants at that time, according to the Jolt Effect, and we're trialing this, is here's a white paper on how you deploy it. Here's our customer success guide, so what you can deploy. And actually, you're validating their purchase, and you're demonstrating that you want to be part of their overall customer success. And I think that's a really interesting, as you look at your content, serving different content at different times in that buying journey is becoming more and more appropriate and relevant. How you customize that, whether you do, as Nav says, you customize it right down to that individual, or whether you make it and say, look, this is a really good example of a deployment guide for an organization of your size who's been using Salesforce as their e-com platform And the customer's like, great, thanks very much. I'll use that. That gives me some more validity that Algolia is the right partner of choice.
Yeah, just wanted to highlight like what Ben mentioned that, about the customer being, where exactly is the customer in the buying cycle. So that's where we have the input from our go-to-marketeers and, the account teams to understand what exactly are the customer priorities right now. And that's how we review it on a quarterly basis. How do we exactly update it so that, it's like we're talking to them the right things at the right point of time. So that's where I think the input from the go-to-marketeers and the account teams becomes very critical. And yeah, that's how we like take things forward.
Talking about customization of content, I work in the defense industry, which is incredibly niche. I would assume that it's one of the more niche areas there is. I might be wrong, but it sure feels like it sometimes. But when it comes with content, one challenge I find is that when I produce content can sometimes be very specific to a client, and then but then not really relevant to others. However, if and on the other side of the spectrum, I have crowd pleasers, essentially content that does get the downloads, that does get the interaction, but the client basically says, we're just interested in the content, we're not exactly interested to come to your conferences, which is the main product we're trying to sell. So I find it very interesting what Ben said, and I think there has to be a sort of balance between customization of the content to your customer, and at the same time enough bandwidth or leeway that, especially when you're creating content with very few resources, that it nets the biggest amount of readers possible. I hope that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And Judith, I know you have a view on this. We discussed about the non-linear marketing funnel. We have been discussing all the idea of putting content depending on which stage of the funnel they are, but you have this view of the non-linear marketing funnel. So could you explore that idea?
Yeah, and that's around, how do we find the right balance of, being always at the top of mind of the customer throughout the buyer's journey, being respectful of the time they need for research, but then really actioning on those signals that they show for us when they are ready for an engaging conversation. And then how can content help? And then I'm sure that we all experience this challenge of, budgetary constraints and resource constraints when it comes to fueling our account-based marketing funnel. And yes, we all understand that the ultimate, nirvana in content strategy is to have hyper-personalized content for our one-on-one accounts. But is that actually feasible with the resources we have? And is it actually smart to invest proactively in that hyper-personalized content and messaging before even understanding what the account is looking at buying? Getting back to that previous conversation of whether we want to sell something or we want to understand what the customer would like to buy. So when building out a content strategy for account-based marketing, the way I like to build it out is to be respectful of this resource intensity of the hyper-personalized content for those chosen accounts, and then really only do that one-to-one approach for accounts where we have a good repository of content for that kind of one-to-many and one-to-few layer, and then sending those assets out using a variety of channels and tactics and integrated mix of marketing tactics. And then once the account starts to engage, then being reactive on those signals, and then maybe activating less resource intense content in that funnel, probably using the resources of BDRs or SDRs there, and then making sure that the follow-up or the outreach is very personalized, or maybe, using shorter assets or a personalized video in that outreach, as opposed to putting a lot of resources and budget behind creating those hyper-personalized assets upfront that might be long tail assets, as opposed to that kind of putting the signals out, being really real time and reactive as much as we can on apprehending that those signals that we get from the accounts, and then being as quick as possible on reacting, and then being personalized on that follow-up, and maybe, creating, smaller snippets of content, but yeah. So that's how I look at content creation, and then there as well to keep this dynamism in mind, as opposed to being very descriptive and linear in our planning of the content repository.
Agreed. Navneet, you had your hand raised? No.
Did I? I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. Yes. Just asking
If
yeah, sorry.
If I may just ask a question to the panel, do you, when it comes to content, do you find that because how it works with IQPC is that obviously the content is there to create that pre-conference engagement and to get people to come to our conferences, and being blunt, getting a good resource for value, getting a good value for their buck at our conferences. But I have had some feedback from what I guess would be considered the delegate sales team, that a lot of people would be are very interested in the content, but they don't want to engage in the actual conference product. I don't know. I don't know if the same challenges are also felt otherwise.
Absolutely. We have a classic one at the moment, which is Tiago. We ran a load of podcasts, and the first thing our sales team said, "Well, where's the leads?" And I said, "What do you mean, where's the leads?" I said, "This was about generating content and material to raise awareness as part of that buying journey. This was never about lead generation." "Oh, well, then we can't show the value." I said, "Well, maybe we can't. You can probably show it through clicks, but even click-throughs from the site are very small." I think sometimes you've got to be prepared to give up content and material as a way of elevating, as a way of informing, and a way of distributing your brand across a broader audience. I think that one of the best examples of that, I'm pretty sure it's HubSpot. Oh, I'm 99% sure it's HubSpot. I subscribe to a lot of their stuff. I have no desire to buy HubSpot. I will never buy and never deploy HubSpot. We have a different CRM, but they produce some really good content that I think, oh, that's actually really useful to read and to consume. But I know who their brand is. Now, I was to ever change jobs, or if I was ever to be put onto a panel that says, "Ben, we're going to be looking at our CRM," probably HubSpot will be in there. But I think we've got to be prepared as marketeers, and in the ABM world, be prepared to give up the gated content and give up the trade-off that I'm going to give you the content for you to sign up to my event, to here's some content, consume it, see how you get on with it. If you like it, we have an event that you may be interested in. If not, here's more content. And that's all about just maintaining that brand. And I go back to what I said at the very start. It's not about you, but it's all about you, because if you are seen to give stuff and you're seen to providing value, at some point in their buying process, they will want to engage in an event. And at that point, you've got to hope that the work that you've done in the IQPC brand is the one that they go, "Well, actually, that was the event and they were being really useful. I'm going to go and have a conversation with them." And I think more and more of that is something that, we look at our brand and our PR is about raising that level of awareness of you as an organization. And in an ABM world, when you consider that the buying team may consist of anywhere between 7, 15 people, depending on what the value of your deal is, you need to be making sure that your content is being consumed by as many of those. And some of them may have just say, "Oh, yeah, I've read a load of Valgolia stuff, never met with them, never seen a demo, but actually some of their stuff's really quite good. And I listened to their CTO podcast for me, that's something that's a big achievement for us in our ABM process, because the sales guys then going, oh, great, you've seen that, you've read that, you've heard that, you've watched that, great, that's fine. So I can overcome the Algolia who we are.
Yeah, I think one thing is raise awareness, and the other is build trust with everything that you describe. I think what you're trying to do is building trust as well, and building trust, I think it sometimes requires giving something. For example, talking about your competitors and accept that they are good at what they are. You know, if you show yourself that and accept that your competitors are good in some areas maybe that you are not so good at, you are building trust with your audience, and I think people perceive that, and at the end it will pay off.
I would be happy to reflect on that challenge, Tiago, that you share. And I think that relates to this common sense idea that ABM is a long distance run. And I think it also relates to how we should be looking at measuring the success of account-based marketing. Because when you're talking about this challenge that, you know, the audience might be consuming your content, but actually not signing up for your event, I would raise the question of, you know, how long are you looking at the measurement of your ROI? Because maybe that same person who's today, you know, looking at your content, you know, on a long distance might become a customer, but you need to look at the measurement of your success of that approach with a longer distance span, as opposed to converting them, you know, here and now immediately to sign up for an event.
I agree. And well, let's enter into the final topic of today's conversation, which is the technology infrastructure. And I think definitely we need technology to measure what you're saying, Judith. And you mentioned in our previous conversation about the challenges in redesigning Endava's CRM, right? How crucial is having the right technological infrastructure for an ABM strategy, and that also you have tools like Sixth Sense, Demandbase available. And so how do you determine how to integrate them into your ABM approach?
So actually that's a little bit of a personal journey here, but I joined Endava about 7 months ago, and before that I spent 7 years at a software vendor, where the marketing team as well as the marketing technology stack was much more elaborate and, you know, bigger, more tools, more resources available. And what I found here at Endava is that, again, ABM is a journey, right? And you need to be really comprehensive of that. And I prefer building a sustainable marketing technology stack. I think it's not always about the amount of tools and technology that you have available, but really looking at the available tools that you have and ensuring that all the tools are integrated with the CRM, you know, the kind of laying that foundation right, and then gradually building on top of that. So essentially, I was exposed to many more ABM tools in my past at the previous company I worked for, which I don't necessarily have at my exposure today here at Endava, but we have that long-term vision that we will gradually integrate them. But it wouldn't be, I think, a smart decision to immediately invest a lot in all of these tools and integrate them, because we have to be comprehensive of our internal resources, skills. We need to upskill the teams to be able to run ABM campaigns successfully, and we need to ensure that the existing technologies, the automation tool, the CRM, the sales automation tools are all, you know, integrated and they talk to each other. And then once that foundational layer is created, then we can gradually implement other more advanced tools like Sixth Sense or Demandbase, you know, and then they will also require bigger investments from the marketing budget, which obviously, again, for the for the wider organization, within the commercial organization, you need to be able to prove the value of your investments, right? So all of a sudden, you can't just advise that I want to spend 20% of my budget on all of these tools, as opposed to that, starting small with smaller steps, but then gradually being able to show the value, and then, walking through that journey. I think that's what's important when we look at tools and technologies and what we invest in, is to be sustainable and have that long-term vision, as opposed to short-term investing a lot, and then actually the teams who are using those tools also need to be upskilled on being able to benefit from the value. And
setting the right foundations, right, with the right CRM, starting from there. Navneet, with what we are discussing about technology, how did you share the tools like the Knowledge Hub, for example, that you were describing before, integrate with technology, maybe with demand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, I think we are fortunate enough to use our own marketing automation platform, which is called the Customer Intelligence 360. So it's one of our solutions. And to give you a specific example of how we integrate it with the Knowledge Hub, right? So we use this for our nurture flows. So the customer journey doesn't end at the Knowledge Hub. So at the Knowledge Hub, they sign up to a curated set of alerts, which is tailored for them. So we set up 2 nurture streams using our CI 360 platform. So the nurture stream, let's call it Nurture Flow 1, is kind of like an organic promotion of the Knowledge Hub. And this is kind of triggered to all the customers which belong to these strategic accounts, but have not signed up to the alerts. So it's kind of like an organic promotion of the alerts. And the second set of nurture flow is someone who is already in our CRM systems. So we basically come up with account specific assets or industry specific assets, which is tailored to them. So this is just giving you a small example of how we use the CI 360, our marketing automation platform, in this, using that, again, talking about the technology infrastructure. But I think as B2B marketers, I think we are a bit limited on the kind of options we have to run these one-on-one targeting. And the paid social is obviously I think the major channel that we use. But since we are so this is a little bit of a pilot phase for us. So we have started this at a full scale just last year, at the start of last year. So it's still in a pilot phase. So we are in a phase where we are testing a lot of things. So so we are A/B testing something called the one-on-one content syndication with the accounts. So this is kind of leveraging a different set of vendor and different set of channel to reach out the accounts. So Knowledge Hub was kind of as I said, as our primary asset in play, but we are kind of creating multiple touch points for the accounts to interact with. So, just completing the customer journey. So they have more options to interact with our brand. And yeah, that's kind of a small example of how we use this big technology infrastructure that we have to leverage.
Brilliant. Well, we are coming to an end. I wanted to give, first of all, many thanks to all of you for coming today, and also give the opportunity, if you want to give any final thoughts about today's topic, please feel free to.
It's interesting you mentioned the ITSMA at the start, and we used to be members of them. And actually, I met with Bev Burgess, who was probably one of the leading practitioners in account-based marketing and has written a number of books on it. I would say to anyone and any B2B marketer, it's a discipline that we need to embrace, but be prepared. It's a longer game you've got to play here, and your metrics and your measurements don't be outmaneuvered by the sales guys who will try to throw everything in it with their romantic view. Be very focused, be very disciplined, and embark upon this as a long game. And will take time, and you will need to understand how you measure and how you look at some of the data and how you You're going to have to say no to a few people, but also you're going to have, there's a very good book called The 12 Powers of Marketing. And I think ABM is a very good example of how you need to network across your organization. Most of us who sit in field marketing, we focus on events and that's it. And we interact with the markup scene. ABM is one of those disciplines that sits right across everything: sales, marketing, finance, customer success, SEs, partners, etc. So, you need to be cognizant that not only is it about reaching the customer, but you've got to be able to network and orchestrate quite a very complex internal organization to get them aligned. But it's well worth it, and it's incredibly the lady who runs my ABM team. It's quite interesting. She's been doing it now for about a year, and her success. When she sees the success that she gets, i.e., the engagement from accounts or the sales guys who say, "I've just reached out to this customer. They were so impressed with some of the stuff." She just lights up, and her team just really glow. And I think the success on that is we're starting to see the sales guys going, "Okay, this is starting to work, and we can get some value on it." So invest in it, but be prepared that you're going to have to justify it, and it's not going to give you a return in 90 days.
Well, what a great way to close today's conversation. Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you so much, everyone. We had an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.